Hey everyone, I thought I'd post a video here of some common pitfalls for cello technique. These are things I see beginning students doing all the time that are incorrect and really easy to fix and will help your playing tremendously if you address them. The first one is poor posture. I see a lot of slouching happening or kids that are leaning forward too much, but mostly the slouching. So just make sure that you sit up straight, and you want to have a position yourself on the chair so that you could kind of stand up effortlessly. So if you're way too far back in your chair, that's probably not good. Have the cello down like this, or if you're leaning forward, that's not good either. But something kind of in between that is ideal. Also, positioning the cello. This would be the second kind of pitfall. I see a lot of what I call shoulder scrollers. They've got the scroll on their shoulder like this, and this doesn't put the cello in any sort of desirable position to play in the left hand. So just let there be space between your shoulder and the scroll. That'll be ideal. If you can see where the C peg is, if that's behind your left ear, then that's a great reference point for knowing if you're doing it correctly. The other one I see a lot is the cello too vertical, and now the scroll is way up here, and you have to reach a little higher, and your arms are just suspended in the air. So also not good. So yeah, somewhere in between that. Don't want it on your shoulder, and you don't want it too high. Also, I see it sometimes a lot of cellists twisting their body like this to play. I'm not sure how they get this, but it would probably be if the cello's this way, then all of a sudden they're twisting their torso. And this isn't good. The cello is nice and straight, but your body is all crooked and twisted, so that's not going to be good for moving. So again, center yourself to where you're straight, and then let your cello be positioned to you. So the cello is going to be a little bit at an angle to compensate for that. It has to be on the left side of our bodies. And this should fix that problem of twisting when you're playing. So aside from posture and holding the cello, the bow hold is the next most common mistake I see, and definitely the caveman bow hold is what I see all the time. This happens quite naturally because you'll set a student up with a correct bow hold, and then their pinky will slide down, and then they're immediately into the caveman position. So you don't want to do that. You can never play the cello like that correctly or efficiently. You're going to get crooked bowing and all this stuff happening. So just be disciplined about keeping your pinky wrapped around the stick, kind of at the middle of the frog, where the mother of pearl eye is. That's where your pinky needs to go. The other one I see a lot is fingers like really spread apart. Again, not necessary. It doesn't give you any sort of advantage to have a huge sprawling right hand. So just shake your hand out and let your hand fall naturally, and place that on the bow. Now when you're setting up your bow, definitely hold it in the middle with your left hand like this. That way you can place your fingers on the bow. And think of like how you hold the handlebars on a bike. That's sort of how you want to hold the bow. You don't want fingers to be close together either. Again, shake your hand out and then just place them on the bow at the correct spots. We'll go over that real quick again. It's in between the two knuckles on your index finger. That is on the silver grip. These two fingers fall down naturally where they go. My middle finger will touch the bow hair. My ring finger touches the ferrule, the metal piece on the frog that holds the hair in place. And then the pinky is in the middle of the frog, wrapped around the stick at the first knuckle there on the pinky. Now the thumb. This is the other common pitfall. If you're on the kind of the pad of your thumb, the tendency is going to be to lock back like this, and then you have no flexibility in your bowing at all. So keep your thumb perched on the edge. I can't stress this enough, and this is something that most students think they're doing and they're actually not. But keep it right on the tip of your thumb. And if you can think the right edge of your thumb, the right corner touches the corner of the frog where the frog and the stick meet, that's where you need to go for your bow, where your thumb needs to go. So all those things, if you can kind of go over those, that'll get you set up for a good bow hold. And if you feel the caveman bow coming in, just get the pinky back on top and reposition your thumb. Those 2 points are where it always breaks down. So that's all the thing on bow holds, all the pitfalls for bow holds. The other one would be a stiff bow hand in general. So if you're squeezing, try to relax. The idea is you want the fingers to sort of, they're going to assist in articulating and grabbing the string, but they want to follow what the arm does. So if you can have some flexibility in that too, that's good. My teachers would always say you want a strong yet flexible bow hold, and that's definitely true as you're bowing. So if you can imagine the fingers sort of following the motion that you're going and flexing with your bow changes, and that'll get you bowing a lot smoother. Another one is crooked contact point. So I see cellists that will set up like this right away, and that doesn't, see how crooked the bow goes when I'm doing that. Or the other way, that doesn't help either. But think of making a right angle with the bow hair and the string, and that's your ideal contact point. So from when you're on the C and G strings, it'll look like the tip of your bow is pointed out a little bit, but the hair is actually at a right angle with the string. And then as you come over, that gets less pronounced. But if you can just think right angle with the hair and the string, then you'll be set. The other common thing I see is the stick leaning towards the bridge. Don't let that happen either. I always teach my students in the beginning to have the hair be flat and then angle your stick just slightly towards the fingerboard. You don't want to do too much, that's overcompensating, but flat hair and then just a little bit of a tilt towards the fingerboard. And just keep that right angle as you bow. The other thing I see is they'll get a crooked bow, so they're still pulling backward with their arm like this, and that causes the bow to go crooked. So when you get to about here, whenever you're at a right angle here, then you can swing the elbow out to get the rest of that bow. And when you're out here, if your pinky straightens a little bit, that's fine. But really emphasizing that swinging out motion is so important. The other problem I see sometimes is they go the other way and they bow down like this. This is, again, not very natural and causes the bow to go crooked again. So just go for keeping that right angle in contact. If you want to use something called a bow tunnel, you take your left hand and thumb, put it on a string that you're not playing on, and let your finger and your thumb come to the edge of the bow hair. This is like training wheels on a bike. Now you're forcing the bow to stay straight and kind of ingraining the right motion that your arm needs to do. So those are some good tips for bowing a straight bow. The other one that I see students do a lot is mismanaging the bow when they're playing a passage and just not distributing the correct amount of notes for a bow, like in the beginning of the swan. If they use all the bow on those first 2 notes and they don't have anything left for the third, then it doesn't really get the right phrasing out. So using the right amount of bow evenly distributed for the passage that you're playing. Or maybe it's like an up bow that's really awkward and it's sticking out. Just being mindful, maybe you need to change the bowing, or just don't be so forceful on the up bow and save on the down bow. So managing your bow correctly to match the phrasing that you want of the music. Sometimes you have to change the bowing, sometimes you just need to make sure you're using it correctly, but being aware of managing the bow is another common pitfall of cello technique. Another one that is really common is really tense shifts and sudden, quick shifting. You want to have everything kind of be in the tempo and fluid motion of the music. So if you're you want to think of the tempo 1 and 2 and kind of have a preparatory gesture. Let your arm breathe a little bit. So anything that's just too quick or sudden, I see a lot of shifting happening, and they'll miss the shift. It just won't be timed with the music correctly. And then the thumb is so crucial for shifting. If you're squeezing with your thumb, then that's going to automatically kind of create tension before you shift. So get in touch with the idea of liberating your thumb. This is huge in terms of playing the cello, not just for shifting, but for vibrato. So we'll get to that in a second, but the other one that happens for like smaller shifts, like say you wanted to go to second position, is they'll just reach there and they'll leave their thumb behind, like that. And this puts the hand in this awful position. So always keep your thumb behind or opposite of second finger and let it come with second finger so that your whole hand moves as a unit when you shift. So if you're going up to, second position, check and see that your thumb is with middle finger and that you haven't left it behind first finger. The other one would be like doing extensions incorrectly. So for like the upper extensions, I see a lot of beginning students just reach and they leave thumb behind again. So this again kind of throws off the balance of the hand. But instead, let thumb be free and move with these three fingers. So it always shadows the middle finger, second finger, when you do your upward extensions. The lower extensions, you can just point your index finger backward. You don't have to really move your thumb much to do that. So if you can think of lowering your finger to do that, and then moving the thumb up with the other finger, forgetting the upper extensions. Doing extensions correctly is so important for having good balance in the left hand. And so what I mean by that is just not being tense and instead feeling like the weight of your hand is centered over whatever finger you're using. So finger balance is probably the other common pitfall I see happening. It's just a lot. Usually it's squeezing with the thumb or something like that. But if you can think instead of counteracting with the thumb, of pulling the string down to make the note, and then having your thumb be in a place to where the weight of your hand is balanced over the finger that you're using. So whether it's fourth finger, or third finger, or second, or first, or whatever, the weight is balanced on that finger. And then other one I see a lot in terms of left hand is just finger collapsing. If this happens to you when you're pulling the string down, you're probably pressing too much, or maybe you're just not on the tips of your fingers enough. You don't have the strength yet. So practice more on the tips of your fingers. This will correct that collapsing from happening. When you get stronger in your joints, this won't be an issue later, and you can move over to the pads to get a warmer sound. But in the beginning, to kind of build strength, play a lot on the tips of your fingers, and that'll help a lot with finger collapsing. The other one would just be wild, unstructured left hand. You might be see a student playing and their other fingers are doing weird stuff and they're just on one, and there's no structure to the hand at all. This isn't very efficient, so you kind of want to keep the other fingers on the same string as a general rule, ready to play. Or you might want to have one finger on another string if you're going to play on that string soon too. But keeping everything organized and efficient is key for having a good left hand setup. That and keeping thumb opposite of second finger, and then not squeezing. If you can do all that, then you have a good chance of doing vibrato correctly. So if you're squeezing, it's going to be limited into your range of motion. And the other pitfall I see a lot is doorknob vibrato. They'll try to do vibrato, but it'll be this weird wobbly effect. Unless you're doing like some avant-garde piece of music that wants you to sound like that, you probably should never do that type of vibrato. But instead, a vibrato that's more even and it's from the arm. So the motion of going back and forth like you're doing the tomahawk chop or getting ketchup out of a bottle, that's what you want to go for. And then having your thumb be free doesn't limit your range of motion. You can get a good range of motion. And remember, with vibrato, you always want to go back into the pitch. You never want to go ahead of the pitch. That gives that weird wobbly sound. So you good balance on each finger. And you can practice vibrato a couple of different ways. You can slide around and until you're on one spot. That's a great technique. Will require a little bit of finger strength to do that, so you can't do that yet. Use harmonics. But just to get you going in this motion, that'll get your vibrato start to happen. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video on common pitfalls of cello technique, and if you found it helpful, please check out my website, onlinecellolessons.org. I have a whole subscription to lessons there covering all kinds of different pieces, from beginner to intermediate and advanced pieces of music, and we really go into a lot of detail on all these techniques and many other topics. So anyway, I hope this helped, and good luck.